I think the bubble on alts is kind of burst this cycle to an extent. I think a lot of people and intuitively, like just think about it. Everyone kind of knows that a lot of these tokens are just grifts. There's no underlying value to any of these things. Like they don't actually have underlying business models. They don't have anything substantial.
Hey guys, DAS, the Digital Asset Summit, is coming back this year. It'll be in New York City next month. There'll be a ton of great speakers and guests there. Some of our friends on the research team, I know Mark Arjun, Ryan Cashflows Connor, they'll be there in the flesh. So you can have a chance to meet and chat with them and some key folks from around the industry and hear what they're thinking about crypto. For all our listeners out there, use code 0x10 at the link in the description. You can get 10% off tickets, and we really hope to see you there.
Nothing said on 0x Research is a recommendation to buy or sell securities or tokens. This podcast is for informational purposes only, and any views expressed by anyone on the show are solely our opinions, not financial advice. Boccaccio, Ryan, and our guests may hold positions in the companies, funds, or projects discussed. What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of 0x Research. Today I'm joined by Tolks and zkMike to talk about what's happening in the markets and probably spend a good bit of time talking about Grass. But before we get into that, Mike, do you want to give a short introduction of yourself, what you do, when you got in the markets, etc.?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, so quick background on myself. Got into crypto 2017 doing ICOs. Made a lot of money and then lost it all basically around trip, and then basically just stuck around. Was on the research side of things when I got back into working in the market around like 2021. I was doing that for 2 years. Was at a research firm for about 2 years first, and then I was at NeuroDAO doing helping with like incubation and all that good stuff. And then since then, basically just been full-time trading. And then I recently joined the Gundam Fund team, working with basically do like mix of a lot of things like product development and like business BD and stuff like that. So yeah.
Very good. Gun.fi used to be Shogun, right? I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I mean, same thing. It's just the ad is Gundam Fund, but yeah, it's Shogun.
Okay. And do you want to give a short intro on what that is, and then we can get into markets?
Yeah, sure. So Shogun's a intent-based DeFi platform. So right now the main focus is trading. We have like a trading bot and a web app up. It's kind of bare bones right now, but yeah, we're working on that. And then with intents, you can basically do any sort of thing you can think about on chain and DeFi with intents. So later on, I mean, basically anything you can kind of think of, right? And I think later on we're going to try to do a lot of interesting things, such as like, let's say you have like 10K on Sol and you want to do like a leverage loop on Aave on ETH, for example. You could like abstract like all the processes in between that. So yeah, I mean, there's a lot of different creative shit you could do with that, basically. But yeah, right now it's just the trading Telegram bot and a web app for cross-chain transactions.
Very cool. Talks, we kind of talked about this a bit earlier while we were waiting for Mike, but do you want to give some high level market thoughts before I start crying?
Are you in the mood to cry?
A little bit.
Yeah. I mean, it's been a hell of a 24 hours, and it seems like you can say that at least once a week nowadays. Obviously, yesterday we got the couple tweets from True Social. The first one about the reserve, including XRP, Sol, and Cardano, and then the clarification statement about 45 minutes later that, of course, ETH and BTC would be included as well. So obviously on that news, market just absolutely ripped yesterday and running into kind of the bottom of the range that we spent a good 3 months in or so, kind of rejecting off that right now. But yeah, I mean, to me, the bigger story is unfortunately just the macro stuff. And I know we all hate caring about macro, but U.S. equities, specifically Mag 7 and kind of the policies that the Trump admin is adamant pushing forward is kind of weighing heavy on markets right now. And I mean, we can have ideally as many bullish crypto catalysts as possible. But the unfortunate reality is these things don't exist in a vacuum. And so we're kind of tied to macro right now, and that's been weighing heavy on us, and what caused a lot of the sell off the past 2 weeks too. So to me, we're kind of just in a waiting stage right here, kind of see what the event on the 7th Friday is, that crypto summit. We'll see what they have there and whether that ends up being kind of a sell the news thing like we saw with the last crypto summit that they had. But yeah, right now just kind of a lot of, I don't know, a lot of organized chaos, I guess I'd say, and a lot of people. I think you can make compelling statements in each direction right now, and it's kind of just going to depend on what the follow through from the admin is. So yeah, kind of just a wait and see right now.
That makes sense. Mike, any thoughts?
Just on the market?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think what would you guys think about this little pump we got from the Trump stuff? What was your guys' opinion on that?
I thought it was, the thing is, it's kind of disheartening if the president tweets out the tickers and you sell off 24 hours after. Doesn't make you feel great. My general thoughts around SPR, or like any talk of reserve stockpiles, whatever you want to call it, is that it is just like a massive tease and not something that's necessarily going to then amount to anything, at least in the near future. So anytime it's brought up, I feel like you have to kind of sell into it, unfortunately, just because I'm not a huge politics person, but as far as I understand, these things take a lot of time. B, it requires on like external approval. So I wouldn't hold my breath on anybody saying this is going to go through. Which is why I feel like you have to kind of de-risk on all of those, especially since in the short term. In the long term, it's fantastic that you have the sitting president saying we're gonna do like Bitcoin reserves. I don't know about XRP reserves. I don't know how useful that is, but like objectively, it's pretty great news for the industry.
Yeah. Did you see Umi's tweet? I think I sent you it.
I did not.
Oh, here, I'll send you it. He basically thinks that I thought it was interesting. I didn't see anyone else talk about it, but he basically said he thinks that this is kind of like negotiation chips, because he just puts out something super absurd like having XRP or ADA into it, and then it's like he's like, okay, well, if you don't give me what I want, which is a Bitcoin reserve, then we're gonna make it pretty. I don't know. I guess he pushes for those things, but yeah, I generally agree with you. Like this pump is, I think a little bit exuberant, and I mean, nothing's really changed in terms of the macro backdrop. Like, there's still a lot of uncertainty. Like, risk assets are not. There's not really a reason to be allocating the huge amount of risk right now until the macro stuff figures itself out. From my understanding, a lot of that has to do with the balance sheet right now. I'm not some macro genius or anything, but just from what I've heard. But yeah, I mean, I don't think it's necessary. I don't think the top is in by any means. It's just the time to kind of be patient. It's like we got the move on Bitcoin down to 77. It's like if we get a quote unquote underside retest here and go down to like 70s or something, or 74, I think that's a generational opportunity, at least for like a trade.
Yeah,
That makes sense.
I mean, waking up, when was it? Was it Saturday morning or Friday morning? We were under 80. But yeah, I mean, I tweeted about it, but I kind of just have to blind buy there, and that seems fine. I mean, especially how much we're off from the top. But yeah, I mean, like the pump yesterday and stuff. Like, I mean, I don't know. Everybody wants continuation on that, but like, these assets are up, 25 to, ADA went up like 65% at one point. Like, it's gonna, there's gonna be some consolidation and just kind of, flattening out. And I mean, the market, as we saw, like, when BTC was still up at, like 105, we had endless good news. And you remember people talking about just kind of why isn't stuff going up? And it's because, like, it's almost like the market wasn't going to settle for anything less than SBR. Like, that's kind of what was priced in since the election. And then when that didn't come, along with, the Mag 7 and Q's going down for 3 weeks now, like, yeah, just kind of an excuse to sell until there's another catalyst. And I think we'll see on Friday what comes of that crypto summit. But until then, I think kind of need a more market just waxing and waning between reasons to sell and reasons to buy, and trying to find that equilibrium there. But yeah, like Mike said, anything kind of under 80K is just kind of a blind buy to me, while we let the macro work itself out.
Yeah, I don't know if do you guys listen to Agri at all or any of that stuff, or I don't think you do, because do you like look at like order flow at all, Tokes?
Not too much, no.
It was interesting because I stayed up all night. Well, I fell asleep on my desk actually, and I missed the actual bottom. I was
Oh,
listening. I listened to tape pretty much all day, and I was listening to it. I was like, oh, like it's starting to sound. Like you can actually start to hear like differences, and you can kind of start to see it on um lower time frames, like people actually interested versus just degen leverage is trying to hit every
right,
bottom.
right,
Um, so yeah, it's like, okay, well, if we have a build up down there, right, and you actually can, if you're under the assumption that there actually is longer term interest, let's say, I don't know, like 80.8 down to like 78.4, it's like, okay, we have this leverage build up now. If that gets rinsed and you just hit a bunch of people's stops, it's like, okay, well, it kind of sets up perfectly for us just to hit more areas that you start to see longer term interest, right? Like, I don't think all of the people who bought like 78, like 80 are like short term oriented.
right.
Maybe that's not correct, but if you're under that assumption, then you can probably assume that if it goes under that, you're just going to start hitting more and more interest. And then also, it's kind of interesting if you look at like if you just like pull up like a volume profile and pull it from like just like the entire price history, like we kind of just wick through like the big gap in there, and then if you get anywhere under this wick, like down to like 77, down to like 74s, when you or even down to like 69ish is where you start to hit it kind of start to hit like that thicker part of the range. So I would expect that to be near the bottom, and a lot of people start thinking about that too. It's like, okay, well, if that's probably going to be where the bottom is, it's like you start to see people front running and start, etc. So
Yeah. No, definitely. And I mean, there was a ton of, I think there was a lot of kind of short and bearish build up in the weeks, you know, prior weeks leading to Sunday. And of course, a lot of that culminates towards, the bottom ish. Obviously, I mean, that catalyst yesterday too, like, I mean, stuff like that is just, you can't meaningfully like price that in any way. Um, in advance. But yeah, I mean, like you're talking about, like the short term orientation. Like I said, I woke up, you see BTC like sub 80, like I'm fine just buying there and not even trading that. Like, just send it to cold wallet. Like that's a fine price for me. Like if I lose on that, I lose on that. We go back under again. Like I'll buy some more and um, just remain patient and see there. But yeah, I mean, overall, like I don't know. I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility that we just spend another couple months just kind of chopping around here while like I said, the macro and tariffs, kind of the Trump policies, like they kind of, and the US Treasury Secretary Bessent, like they've kind of made it pretty clear that they kind of want markets down in the short term. So kind of fighting against that a little bit in a way. But the good thing about that is like it doesn't seem necessarily like there's not like idiosyncratic risk in my mind. Like you'll kind of know when to like flip back on to like super bullish, which I think is awesome compared to the alternative of like in the summer where it was just, kind of endless headline after headline and just a slow, like methodical grind down. Like at least at this point, like it's almost coming top down. So once that pivot comes, like it should be pretty clear when risk is really entering the market again.
I will say one thing I liked about the summertime was that it didn't feel like we had topped. Now, since we hit 110, you could reasonably make the argument that we did top, and like the chop down is just us actually going down. Versus in the summer, I assume you're talking about that range, like 65 to 70 range, or I
Yeah.
guess 50 to, like back then, I was not stressed out at all because I was like, that's not the top. We can wait a bit more. But I do think I positioned very differently to both of you, where I just bought and then never really thought about some core stuff for a very long time. Versus
Yeah.
now I have to actively think about it all the time, which I don't like doing.
I think that's a good point. I mean, I'm with you. Like the summer, like that it was kind of it was really like meat grinder PA that was just, it was tiresome after a long time, but there wasn't really ever a doubt in my mind that like, I don't know, that was topped. I mean, you had the election too, like who knows what would have happened if it went, the opposite way. Like, that's all meaningless to kind of talk about now. But yeah, there was never really like an overall concern that we topped. I mean, I don't necessarily feel strongly one way or the other. I lean a little bit more towards, I don't know, maybe like 60-40 that maybe it's top at least, but I don't know. Like I said, I'm more just, 3 months plus or so around there of like, just kind of chop and hang out, and then we'll see. But I mean, when they do pivot from the top down, like it just depends on if it comes with, you know, a lot of pain in the interim or not.
Yeah, totally. The cycle's weird, man. It
It's
is
so
really weird.
weird. It's so weird.
Yeah, I've been trying to kind of place it in my mind, and I can't think of what we're doing anymore. Like there's no like past historical thing that I can be like, oh, this is exactly like when this happened. I've heard some arguments for it's just the same as the range that we had in the summer, which is I feel like the common thought. Another one is like we're doing the 2021 pullback after the first top to head into a double top. I don't know. It's kind of difficult, and I think the best way to probably think about it is BTC is a completely different asset to everything else, and then the alts will just have small cycles for themselves.
Yeah, I think that's fair. And I mean, with like how much we're intertwined with TradFi now, like I don't know, pontificating on like tops and cycles and like alt seasons and like comparing it, like all that stuff to me is, I mean, it still matters some, and there's historical context you have to pay attention to, but like the asset is driven by like outside factors now that weren't really, since the ETF launch, like those didn't necessarily matter, but now we're so tied to macro, and like you can nobody, I mean, there's very few people in the world that like can accurately predict the direction of macro. So in that sense, like I don't know, you just kind of, I don't know, pontificating about it all, like as the asset and the class like grows, just becomes a little bit more sillier to me, which is both a good and a bad thing. Like, the dispersion and diversification of returns, like we've seen this cycle, like I think that'll continue into the future. And that's because again of where the asset is and like what it's tied to. Like you can't just, you know, play seasonality and like 3 months from the halvening. So XYZ happens and, all season happens in this period of time. Like those things aren't necessarily as meaningful as they once were. And I mean, it takes some adjustment to get used to that. But overall, like I think it's a good thing for the asset class at large.
Yeah, I think you can kind of break it down into three different things. One, you mentioned Boccaccio, is that Bitcoin is somewhat of a different asset class now, which is, I think, fair to say, looking at how closely correlated it is to S&P and how there was before that big liquidation event a couple weeks ago on the weekend, like everything was getting sold off in crypto. So being a 24/7 market, you kind of get a sense of what's going to happen. Or it was before the DeepSeek thing. I think it was like the DeepSeek
Yeah.
event.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, like people can use crypto as an outlet now to express these various views, especially on the weekend. And then I think the second point would be, um, I mean, I don't think people like when people talk about alt season. I don't know how you guys feel about this, but I think we've had tons of alt seasons and tons of alt opportunities.
Yes.
Probably not more than the cycles, but I think it's just difficult. It's more difficult, and the opportunities are all on chain. Like, dude, the amount of shit on chain that went from sub like let's say reasonably, if you weren't doing pump fund, which is not a lot of people, you can get in around like sub 10. The amount of
Mm-hmm.
opportunities and stuff that went to like 10 to like 100, 200 plus.
253. Yeah. That was kind
Yeah,
of the top
massive.
for a lot of stuff. Yeah. But like yeah, I'm with you. I'm with you 100%.
It's more akin to that side of it was more similar to ICOs, the ICO cycle, in my opinion. And then you just see sex coins underperform a lot. But dude, like even we've had tons of periods where like perps and alts on centralized exchanges have gone crazy. Like over when we ran up during the summer, pre-summer, dude, like every single meme major is going up 20% every single day. Like,
Yeah.
like how can people say we haven't had an alt season?
Yeah. No, I'm with you. Like it just looks different than what it was in the past, but like the amount and like that goes back to, kind of the dispersion and like returns that I was talking about. Like, yeah, as that asset class like matures, like things get a little more difficult. Like that's just the nature of how anything in life works, like the efficiencies, the longer it's around, like they get stripped out, the inefficiencies, and it becomes more efficient. But yeah, I mean, I'm with you. Even like, like Sui went insane, like Say had an insane run, like, Soul went 20 to 300. Like, yeah, it didn't necessarily look like the alt season of past in a way. And look at all the, like LTC and XRP and all these coins, like, I don't know, they went up a shit ton. And then on chain, like, you had months at a time where there was, 3, 4, 5 runners from, like you said, sub 10, even like 20 mil up to, a couple hundred mil. Like, yeah, maybe that's not the alt season definition that you would have read in a book if you were preparing for crypto like 2.5 years ago, but I don't really know what else to call that.
Yeah, you kind of nailed it. That was my third point. That it basically was I forget what I was gonna say. Oh
But
yeah,
I mean
maturing
that,
market.
yeah, the maturation of the market, like it's just, I don't know. To me, it was always silly, like just to operate under the assumption that you're going to have an alt season where no matter what coin you kind of really allocate into, like, yeah, I'm just expecting this to go up 5 to 10x, like because of this is what has happened previously. Like that just becomes silly, and especially as pump started taking off and the Soul on chain, like it was pretty easy to reason that there is like orders of magnitude more coins this cycle, so like things are going to play out a little different. Like could have realized that, I don't know, a year and a half ago, like things are just different.
Yeah, I mean, we've been talking about this for months now as well, and
Yeah.
I completely agree with both of you. Even if we're saying like alt season has changed the way that it looks, I would say we had what looks like a stereotypical um, alt season in March 2024. Like that March 2024 pump was what it was like. Well, not maybe not like the 2021 extent, but it was still like very like retail driven. Everything went up. Every single like token went up. And it wasn't like dispersion, it was just everything went up. So I feel like you can even just say we'd already had like a pretty decent one.
Yeah, it just pulses a risk, right? It's changing now because people are smarter. They, I mean, dude, like if you ever go on TikTok or anything, or like just non crypto Twitter shit, all these guys actually talk about, oh, like sell news events. You don't want to be exit liquidity. Like this FDV is too high. You should buy this other coin. It's like, as much as the insulated, isolated bubble of crypto likes to think that normies and retail aren't smart. The new dude, like the information isn't half bad. Like, dude, when I was trading shit in 2017, the
Yeah.
information that you could get was awful. Like nowadays, you go on to TikTok and the algorithm just feeds you stuff where it's like, okay, like that's actually like good information. Like before, it was like, okay, here's like Justin Sun talking about Tron being the future of everything, and Ian Bellina showing some spreadsheet bullshit. Like,
Did you
Yeah.
ever Mike, did you ever end up doing some like analysis on the YouTube and TikTok stuff?
I never did actual analysis on it. I kind of just I don't really I used to go on TikTok a lot and I had just a curated list of people I'd follow and check in on, but I've been kind of lazy about that. The YouTube stuff, no. I need to play. I should mess around with it now that after playing around with all the AI stuff, it's like okay, this should be relatively easy to do now.
I checked out on the YouTube videos and tried to see if like increased posting about a token implies like some form of attention top, and it doesn't. Like I think content creators have managed to make it so efficient that like from what I saw, and I didn't have a huge like sample set, it didn't really like. Maybe you can figure out a better way to do it than I did, but I couldn't find like any edge in it at all. It didn't like give me any signal, unfortunately.
Yeah, YouTube, I'm not sure about, but TikTok, I backtested a lot of stuff. This was months ago, but I backtested a bunch of stuff and just kind of looked at the price action versus other things that didn't have TikTok shills on it, and it is pretty noticeable when there is an uptick in capital flowing from those. It's just I think the hard thing in the signal would be trying to figure out when there's actually meaningful money coming from these outlets. Like for example, there was some BNB token I looked at called some on-chain thing. It's called AI Tech or something.
Sounds bullish.
Dog shit token. But if you look at the chart, you can just look at it and be like, oh, that's a retail driven price action. And it was getting shilled heavy on TikTok. And it ran up to, let's see, it got up to like almost like 500 mil or something. Something crazy.
Yeah. No, I mean, like what you're talking about with just monitoring, and it just goes back to what we're talking about with dispersion and like harder cycles. Like, you had people like after the Trump launch, and then I think when Portnoy was on chain, just being an absolute menace. Like you had people monitoring the moonshot like volumes, and just there's just so many more outlets and more ways to onboard, and kind of what you're talking about, Mike, about like figuring out like when that strong flow of money like is coming in. Like it becomes more difficult as there's like growing on ramps. There's people are kind of already tapped in and just waiting for various things. Like it used to be, just going back to like alt season, like you used to kind of know like when stuff started ripping, like it was kind of, I don't know, it was gonna rip for a little while. But now, like, I don't know, things are just so much more efficient.
Yeah, I feel like if you were, it's the worst type of market for people who believe in the tokens. It's you're not supposed to believe anymore. What's up, guys? Welcome back to 0x Research. Today, I'm joined by Antonio from dYdX. Thanks for coming on, Antonio.
Hey, thanks so much for having me.
We've talked about this a bit. Improving product experience. You mentioned simplifying it to maybe onboard a new generation of perpetual traders. Is there anything else that you guys are specifically focused on? And to add on to this, what is the ideal product experience in your mind for dYdX?
Yeah, absolutely. So just to be clear, we'll always be focused on sophisticated and pro traders as well. But as an addition, we're really excited about potentially onboarding a new class of retail type traders with a simpler UX as well. So I'm excited about that. I still am pretty hot on this thesis long term that I title Trade Anything. And I think if you look at the evolution of pretty much everything that's gotten hot in crypto for years at this point, it's really determined by how many markets can you trade at a given point in crypto on a given exchange. And if you look at the evolution all the way back to 2017, when DeFi started, in 2020, when DeFi got hot, in 2017, we had ICOs and we had maybe hundreds of things that you could buy into. 2020, okay, you have now thousands of things you can trade with a Uniswap. Fast forward to 2024, now you have pump.fun and you can trade hundreds of thousands of things. And the interesting part of this is every time this happens, the fundamental form factor of the app looks different. Like an ICO looks different from Uniswap, looks different from Pump Fun. But you see this fundamental thing just continuing to increase by orders of magnitude. And I think there's a lot of reason to believe that that's going to be the case on derivatives as well. And derivatives right now are really big in terms of trading volume in crypto, but not that big in terms of actual number of users in crypto. It's a lot of trading firms, a lot of more sophisticated individual traders, and that's great. And there is a big business opportunity there. But I'm really excited about increasing this to many more use cases. And what could you do with derivatives on tens of thousands of things, on a million things? What does the app look like in that case? That's really what we're looking at long term. And there's a lot of problems that we have to go out and solve there. Like, how can you build a chain that's performant enough to handle that many markets? Could you have new types of liquidity models like an AMM or potentially even a bonding curve for a nascent type of derivative that could allow you to have orders of magnitudes more things with liquidity? And those are the types of things we're really excited about tackling over the next few years. What is that going to look like exactly? I honestly don't know yet, but that's the direction that we're moving in.
Mike, you brought up the AI stuff, and I want to talk about First of all, to our listeners, I bought ChatGPT Plus or Pro just because Mike sent me like 5 reports about it and said this is fucking fantastic. Mike, I think you're the only person that I know that is actively like spending a lot of time building out processes for this. I want to talk to you a bit about that. Has it worked out? Has it been efficient? And do you want to give a little bit of a introduction on what you've been doing with deep? What the hell is it called? Deep research.
Deep research, yeah, sure. So we are going to talk about. Okay, I didn't know if you wanted to take that risk. Okay, all right. Yeah. So with deep research. I guess a little TLDR for people listening that don't know what it is. It's the new ChatGPT OpenAI agent. What is it? I'm not sure. I think it's just called an agent, right? You have to pay. I think it's like this pro is I think $200 a month.
Yeah,
So the
200.
deep research thing, you can basically. I mean, it's the craziest. It was the craziest thing I've ever used in tech ever. I think and especially the search feature they rolled out with it, because you can just search real time internet with it, which I think is like if you've ever used ChatGPT, it like couldn't just search real time stuff up to date as much. Like it still could to some extent, but not like, oh, like, this event just happened. Let me ask it to pull me all the news articles or research analysts' takes on this macro event, for example. This is kind of interesting because, like, if you think about anything you do on the internet, a lot of it is, um, especially in crypto, like you want to know like stuff that's happening recently. This can pull and give you like these crazy reports and insights on it within like 5-10 minutes, or whatever. Like I've asked it. I've had to do things like research reports down to um, like doing like background checks on companies and their employees for me, like and giving me all the legal cases that a specific nonprofit has faced since its inception, and it's super detailed and gives you citations and all that stuff. So yeah, deep research is sick for anything crypto related. Um, and then I think when you use these things versus the other old models, you start to it kind of kicks off like this creativity loop of thinking, okay, like what's possible with this thing? Like for example, you mentioned what I've been doing with some other projects. Like one thing I've just been building out for fun is a like basically just training this project to be like my fashion stylist. So anytime I buy something like a clothing piece or something, I'll send it the sizings, and then it basically learn, and I'll give it feedback once I try it on and let it know like, okay, like the sleeves are too long, the length is too short, and it just constantly learns these things. And then when I ask it for new recommendations, it'll be like, okay, like well it just learns basically everything. Like your sizings basically and all that stuff. I mean, and then you can stem off of that, like, hey, like what colors go work well with this and all that different stuff. But yeah, endless creativity. It's super cool. Would recommend it.
I think, like you said, that the older models, it's typically very difficult to work with crypto with them because I feel like their knowledge is outdated. I mean, I was a big like Claude guy for a really, really long time, and Claude doesn't have any new information. I think cutoff right now is October 2024. Um, Deep research is fantastic. I had to do some research on Solana inflation and like validator stuff, staking, and I don't have a fantastic background on that. And then I just asked it, and it gave me everything. And you can even like work with it and say only use like Solana Foundation and specifically like GitHub and also like let's say like Marinate or Jiro's website, and it will only use those. And it'll give you like explanations of what people are thinking. And what I really really liked is that I feel like usually when you expect like some write up from AI, it's like kind of like slop. You know what I mean? It's
Yeah, you can tell it's AI, and then
yeah.
you have to spend a lot of time just making sure doesn't look like it's written by AI.
Yeah. Yeah. But apart from that, it's also like the slop side of it. It always falls for marketing. I feel like that's like my big issue is it'll read like a blog post on I don't know, like page one, and it'll say, wow, page one, according to the page one website, is the best research and newsletter thing in crypto. And like it can't discern that, but I felt like deep research was smart enough to be like, okay, if this protocol is making this claim, it might have a reason to do so. So it actually makes like your research a little bit better. It helped me write a report very, very well, I will say. Like it cut down my time a lot. And that's the reason why um I don't know, this was like my first I feel like I didn't really have that huge thing with AI when it first came out. I wasn't like, wow, this is fucking life changing. But I've been using it very, very heavily, like AI in general over the past however long. But this was insane. I highly recommend like anybody to just try it out for 1 month. It's genuinely incredible.
Yeah, it's fantastic. I mean, Grok's pretty good nowadays on Twitter just for crypto stuff because like the real time, like that data lag aspect
Yeah.
you were talking about. Like, granted, you kind of have to parse through the information because again, it's just tweets and it's harder to find like the verified source of data. But like just using that as like a little side analyst on certain things or to catch up on whatever token you want is becoming like extremely useful to me.
Oh yeah, I mean they're all getting really good, dude. You know what the coolest part is too about GPTs that you can I mean it's an agent, so you can treat it like you can use it as a scraper too. Like I was helping my friend who was thinking about getting it, and he needed to pull like 100 APIs or something from different documentations, and we just fed it some parameters of what we were looking for, and within 10 minutes it pulled literally everything, and that would have taken
Yeah.
like how long would it take to go through and find all the correct API documentations and then actually pull the correct things that you need as a developer? It's like a whole day probably.
Yeah, no doubt.
Dude, have you guys tried Operator?
No.
The other one? It's a little clunky, right? But it kind of gives you a peek, and it's kind of like trying the first iPhone. It kind of gives you a peek in like what's possible in once they kind of get faster. Like, dude, with Operator, I had it log into my Substack account to Crossword Capital and copy paste every single article that he's posted since he made the Substack, which with all the images and shit into a Google Doc. Which I don't know, that probably would have taken me like
Oh yeah.
3
A
hours.
while. Yeah.
Yeah, and then I need to do this next part, but I'm gonna feed it into either I don't even know if I need to use deep research for this, but I'm gonna upload all the text into a project and then have it make me like a macro study guide in like fundamentals order, like top or bottom down or bottom to top in like a pyramid, so I can learn all the principles that he's talked about since he's been posting and had his paid sub, and just like go through and learn all that shit. Like that's what I mean by like that's what I was trying to say with like the creativity. Like you can do all these
Yeah.
things that probably would have taken you like 10 hours to start up.
If not longer, yeah. No,
Yeah.
I mean it's crazy. The only thing I think we need is we need more tokens attached to these things so I can speculate on
There's
Is
one.
that lead in?
them.
There's one, and we're gonna talk about it. And there's a lot of people upset with us because there was some. I don't know how true this is, but there was some news that there's some wallet movements on the Grass, the Bybit side. I don't know. We'll see. And also, Rodeo's upset that I didn't have him on, but I had you on, Mike, to talk about Grass. But should we talk a bit about Grass? I feel like no one has a great thesis on Grass. They're just like, this is a good token and it should go up. Mike, they're saying that you actually have a good thesis on it. Do you want to share it with the class?
My thesis on Grass?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's the one-liner I think is it's the only liquid token right now that you can reasonably bet will go up. That's not a complete scam. I think it's as simple as that. Like
That's a good one-liner.
what else? Like, I mean, seriously, like, what else are you gonna bet on to express bullishness on crypto AI or just crypto in general? Like, I mean, you could bet on DeFi, but a lot of these have bag holders, bro, and that's a real issue. Like, I mean, Grass kind of has bag, but not really. It's a new token. Um, I mean, I think a big thing that people had an issue with Grass was their transparency, and especially with their data. Like you saw, like how it was underperforming for a little bit or getting sold off, and then their dashboard, the data scrape was just like flat. And then the minute it started upticking, people were like, "Oh shit!" And then you saw a bunch of funds just come in and start like VWAP accumulating it. And if you look from like the date February 3rd, when we had that first liquidation event, it's the top performing coin in the entire market, and it's one of like let's say sub 6 things on their Bitcoin pairs that are actually showing like real deviation from like outperformance. It's like Grass, Kaito, S, Maker, Ada off that pump the other day, which kind of has an asterisk, Celestia, which is like whatever, and then a few other things that are fairly up against their Bitcoin pairs. So, yeah, good token, good team. Needs a
Good
token.
protocol. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, it's yeah. No, I'm with you. Everything you said. And I mean, just like it seems like a good. It's like one of those classic like bell curve tokens for me too. Like you can make the extreme like right curve take like what Mike did. Like you can dig into what they're doing and like what the TAM of that is and kind of like in the broader like AI cycle that we're in, and then the left curve is just like AI token good, like, and it's just kind of one of those things where kind of everyone on the bell curve there is kind of aligned. And I mean the scale at which the amount of data that they have is just it's bonkers. And I think the team and the foundation, and there's some grassroots movement and the community too. Shout out Rodeo, but just give more transparency on the data and the people that companies that are paying for it, because all that stuff has been alluded to and AMAs and tweets here and there. But the scale at which they're operating, when we get more information on that, like the valuation of it makes it very appealing.
Yeah, I'm gonna give a short background on Grass as well. I feel like, okay, for our listeners who don't know anything about Grass, I have an episode that I recorded with Dre back in the day. I think the reason that we've been bringing up the analytics thing, and I think why the analytics page is important, is because the team has stated that they don't scrape data just to scrape data. They've historically been very, very quiet, like you said, Mike, which I honestly don't know why they have been so quiet. I assume it's because they have some NDAs with people that they sell the data to. But they've been like very, very everything under the table. I don't know if that's the right way to say that. They've just been very secretive about the way that they do their operations, until they mentioned that they sell most of the data that they scrape, and they don't scrape data for no reason, which is why people love to pull up this chart that shows daily data scraped in terabytes going up and to the right. And they say, wow, this is fantastic. There's more demand for Grass than ever. I don't know how true that is, to be honest with you. I don't know how like relevant that is, but I will say, and not financial advice, I have exposure to Grass. But I like their thesis of data is very important with AI, because we kind of talked about this as well. Is there's a reason that I want to use ChatGPT, like the recent one, because it has data, live data, and that's what matters to me. Like I don't care about incredible reasoning if the data cutoff is like mid 2024, because it doesn't have the most relevant stuff that I need. Like it can't tell me about StimD 228 because it doesn't know about it. The data is already cut off. Grass is supposed to change this by scraping data, and they also have live context retrieval, which is, I think, like a Perplexity-like product that can scrape data every second. So yeah, I think like that thesis fits. And like you said, Mike, I think you can bet on some DeFi. I don't know any other like very clear cut AI tokens that you can bet on with the confidence of Grass. I feel like there isn't that much like great quality in terms of AI tokens out there right now. I know like people like to do Fetch AI. I think the name's different now, just to get like AI beta, but apart from that, there isn't much to buy versus Grass, which is, I think, quite relevant and probably will be going forward.
Yeah, you mentioned a lot of good things. I think kind of we touched on it a little bit earlier, but I think like, one thing that I've thought, I think the bubble on alts is kind of burst this cycle to an extent. I think a lot of people and intuitively, like just think about it. Everyone kind of knows that a lot of these tokens are just grifts. There's no underlying value to any of these things, except for maybe a few of the DeFi things. But majority of the VC stuff that's launched is just well, it's a new chain, it's a new whatever. Like they don't actually have underlying business models. They don't have anything substantial. Grass has one. I mean, their data scraping business obviously is successful, but they also have this no network that it seems like they have a very good plan on using effectively, not just to do scraping, but they can. And they've talked about this they've mentioned it not super extensively, but I mean they can verticalize or whatever horizontally scale their business into other things, right? Like it's not just like they have to be a scraping business. And whether they can execute on that, I think is more question on if you want to bet on their team, which I think they have a great team in terms of actual development. But yeah, that's just something I've been thinking about. They're doing because if you see on their website, they're doing they're about to launch data labeling as well, which is like a massive sector outside of crypto, like absolutely huge in terms of if you want to talk about like val comps, if they're actually putting up similar numbers to some of the businesses in there, it's like 2.5 bill FDV seems kind of cheap.
Yeah, I think that's been the general thought. And I agree. Like I think if they can get into more and more on the data side, because it's not just scraping, there's a lot more to it. I wonder if they're ever going to launch like a front end product to highlight some of the data sets that they have. Maybe implement like some sort of live searching through it. I'm not sure if that's something that they're interested in at all, or if it's relevant. I thought it would have been cool at some point, but I think at some point I was just seeking for them to do more publicity. And recently, I don't even think they needed it. I think the price was just low, so I was like, "Oh, the team's not talking about it enough." And now I don't think they've actually changed anything. But I'm like, "Wow, the Grass team is doing fantastically in terms of."
Funny how that works, huh?
Well, we can say objectively that they probably could have done a better job marketing if they wanted to. It didn't have to even be like shady grift marketing. They could have just had better education on specific things, right? It's like we had that whole AI Asian meta, and like if you look at Grass versus like the virtual, like all these different pairs, it was like there's clearly people taking the short Grass, long like virtual or AI 16Z or something else type of trade, and yeah, I mean, they just could have done a better job educating. Like even companies like Chainlink are trying to tie into like specific narratives now, like with their social media and marketing stuff. So, yeah,
Yeah,
it's okay. It's okay. Like it's their choice. It's just they're thinking on a timeline. They have like a real business.
It's one of those things that's like it's like kind of annoying, and you don't necessarily want to matter, but like it kind of I don't know everything in today's economy is like the attention economy, and like that stuff unfortunately like kind of matters. It's just the way that it is. Like even with ETH now, like the foundation and everything, like you see the changes that they're making there. It's just like I don't know comms and communication, like BD, like all that stuff it's unfortunately kind of important.
Yeah, there's tasteful ways to do it that doesn't lump yourself into the shady stuff that a lot of crypto teams do.
Yeah, exactly. There's a line in the sand there. Yeah.
But you have to do it. Like you can't not do it. You can't not do it because you're like, this is cringe, or I don't need to do this. I have a great product. This is not just that the Grass team as well. I think I agree with you. Like Mike, being objective, they could have done a better job. But I think a lot of cool teams just tend to not do it a lot because they think it's a bit cringe.
Do you remember famously the Atom founders going on a podcast? I think it was like 2020, and they said that they didn't market Atom or have like a foundation that like reached out to talk about the tech and stuff because they thought it was so good it just would talk for itself.
Yeah.
and you can obviously chart Atom against anything. But I mean, they were kind of right. Like even like there's still a ton of chains that like are launching that are using like kind of the Cosmos tech underneath. Like they were kind of right. It's just like you can't just ignore the aspect of being like, yeah, we need people to buy the token too.
Yeah. Yeah. Do we want to cover anything else? I think we're good, right?
I don't know, Mike. Are you excited about anything else right
Oh
now?
yeah.
Yes, or what else? You kind of watching, working on, trading, anything?
No, I'm just kind of waiting, bro. I think it's just time to be patient. It's like there's no issue waiting. Bro, you could always just buy stuff a little bit higher. It's like look how bad stuff got wrecked just on this tiny little move down after we pumped. It's like, bro, like if you had FOMO at the top, it's like I don't
Yeah,
know, just be patient. Like there's no, especially if you like took a lot off the table and sold reasonably close to the top. It's just how people give it back. Like I overtraded this summer, very much so, and like you just have to like learn from these experiences, and just
yeah,
learn to be patient. Like Grass is like lucky because it's outperformed Bitcoin. Like I think it's like very interesting how much this is actually outperformed against Bitcoin, especially even though they're not dumped when Bitcoin actually was like max capitulating last week, how much it like didn't move.
yeah.
And so like that, like I was like, okay, like thank God, like that would have sucked. But yeah, for everything else, it's just like, yo, like liquidity is so bad, especially after those types of moves. People don't have enough money. It's like, um, just chill for a little bit, do some other stuff. And then to answer your other part, other things looking at, there was what's that AI thing that Rodio's been talking about a lot, that just raised from Founders Fund. I need to look into that.
Prime,
Prime
prime
intellect.
Yeah,
intellect.
he was like,
Yeah,
what? That looks really cool.
yeah. That's on my list too. Bach, have you dug into that at all?
No, I have not. I need to. I need to dig into that. And actually, one of the Blockwork research guys just wrote about Noose. New. I don't know how you pronounce it.
At least
New news
Yeah,
research. Yeah,
I need to read a bit on that as well. I've become increasingly AI filled. Mike, I think that's kind of like to your point of why would people buy DeFi and stuff when AI is here. And I do agree with that. I need to like do more research. We don't have any good AI coins. That's the thing. Like
yeah.
we try to force a Tau long every 3 months, and I fucking hate it.
Yeah. No, I mean that's what makes me. I mean, excited about the Grass and Prime Intellect. And I'm pretty sure Noose, when they announced, gosh, they announced something like maybe like 2 months ago, something they were doing on Sol. But I'd have to double check, but I'm pretty certain there was a reference to eventual token. Um, but yeah, I mean stuff like that. Like I don't know. It's what makes me, and that's why the AI on chain stuff. Like that's why that stuff went just absolutely like vertical. Like I think we'll have a round two of that eventually when the conditions are right. Just because I don't know the intersection of like crypto and AI. Like yeah, a lot of it is vapor and like scam, but like there's clear. I don't know. There's going to be some massive winners in that category. So spending a lot of time there, like in the downtimes, like being as tapped into that as you possibly can is good. But yeah, I saw Nillions launching this month too. Now they announced this morning, so that should be
That's
interesting.
Yeah, I should check that out. Mike, did you go to ETHDenver? Tolks, you didn't go, right?
Nah, I didn't go.
I'm here, but I ended up having to stay in and just like
Okay.
I didn't really do too much. I met with a couple people, but that's about it.
Okay. From what you heard, what were the vibes like? I heard that it was pretty good, but also heard that it was pretty bad.
Seems like I mean I've seen some stuff on Twitter about people talking about it being pretty bad, but some of my friends I've known for quite some time said that they thought the sentiment wasn't as great as normal. Um, which makes sense.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think like there's this tweet from Ari Paul I thought was really good. That I've just like kind of had in the back of my mind since he put it out. I'll send it to you guys. But basically his theory a couple months ago. I mean, it could have changed by any means, but his theory was like this: everything we're seeing in crypto is like positive right now, but we actually need like the actual like things being built here and fundamentals are not catching up to like the actual adoption of like crypto and all that stuff. So I think that I agree with this a lot. You said that there's incredible brand recognition reflects a growing gap between maturity and brand adoption versus real adoption and underlying fundamentals, which I totally agree with. There's just not enough legit shit being built here. I mean, there's definitely a lot of cool stuff that people are working on, ideating on right now. But I mean, those are like years out, and that's what we need more people like that. And there's just been an incentive misalignment. It's like, why, if you're like a good founder, right? It's like you get these rare people like Jeff from Hyperliquid who actually will like go and launch something that's like a good product and execute on it. But like for a lot of teams and founders coming in crypto, it's like, what's the incentive to go try to build something super legit when incentives point you to not doing that and just making a quick exit? It's like, yeah, it's kind of a tough thing for a lot of people to do. And once we figure that out, I think we'll catch up in the next couple of years.
Yeah. I think, yeah. I mean, that's a good point. And just the framework and foundation of like what you're talking about the next couple of years. Like I was kind of telling Bach before we hopped on here, just about just the dichotomy between like mid to long term sentiment versus short term sentiment. Like you have the SEC settling with Uniswap and Coinbase and Kraken and Robinhood and Hester Pierce like leading the task force and like actively like going out of her way to like lobby like feedback on what they should be doing and um, all that stuff. Like that stuff just takes time. Stablecoin and market infrastructure bills get done later this year. Like I don't know, the like US based view of crypto has really never been better. And it's just the unfortunate reality that even going back to like how we started the conversation about SPR, like even if that is announced, like maybe it's local top because that takes the timeline to implement it and to have like the impact. Like this stuff just it takes some time, and people don't like to hear that, especially in crypto, because you're on Twitter and in group chats and it seems like somebody's always doing something. But I think you mentioned a little bit ago, Mike, like you just, I don't know, there's times just to kind of relax and obviously stay tapped in and pay attention to things, but you don't need to always be trading or buying and selling things. Like there's times just to kind of let things play out. And I think that's where we're at right now. But there's still, a ton of exciting things later on this year.
I think that's a good point to end it on. Thanks, guys. Michael, thanks for coming on. Mike, zero knowledge, Michael.
Yeah, why is your name's wrong right now? Why is it not your Twitter name?
Where's the ZK?
Oh fuck, I forgot to put it on. No.
He's a fake ZK guy, Ron.
he hopped out. He's got to readjust it.
Are you actually doing this?
I think so. No, he's gonna pop back on with it on. ZK Boccaccio.
Dog, I messed up the whole thing.
Jesus Christ. How you mess it up, bro?
This is my day job as well. There we go. ZK Boccaccio. All right.
There we go.
Michael, thanks for coming on. I appreciate this.
Oh, thanks for having me on. Appreciate it.
That was fun.
Yeah.
It's always good to yap. We finally got around to it, even though Bach was putting it off for months.
Yep, my fault. Nobody else's fault.